Welcome to the first episode of Pixelated Harmony, the voices behind video game music. I am ecstatic to kick this series off, and to kick it off, I am joined by multi-award winning video game composer, plus a bunch of hyphens, Chase Bethea. Chase, how are you doing, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, especially on the kickoff episode. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us and kind of get down into your journey. And I don't want to, I just want to jump right in. Obviously, let's start from the beginning, and not necessarily the tippy top, but let's go from like high school into college. You've been in music, you've been doing things. What does that journey look like for you? How did you, decide that this is a path that I want to go down?
So, yes, thank you for being very specific about it. So, from high school, I was working in a DAW or a digital audio workstation called Fruity Loops 3. Before that, it was Hammer Time. And I remember writing a piece of music. I took it to this, I was taking the bus to go to school. And this girl, Tasha, she was a friend of mine at the time. And I let her listen to it. Gave her the headphones. And she said, "Sounds like it should be in a video game." So that was the first thing she said when she listened to the first piece of, I'm going to quote air quotes, computer music that I did. And I really never escaped that sound from that point forward. And I didn't know how to do video game music or when. And it wasn't until many years later, I would say several years later after high school, I was working at a internet media company called Music Plus Television, which turned into Blaze TV. And one of my friends, Jason, who was the IT, I was his assistant along with doing stage manager and writing music for the company and all this other stuff. He said, "It sounds like it should be in Castle Crashers." So I researched and I Googled Castle Crashers. And I thought, oh, this is a game that doesn't look like God of War on PS2. It doesn't look like Gears of War. It doesn't look like Shadow of the Colossus. It doesn't look like any of these games that I've known from PlayStation, PS2, Xbox 360, even though Crash Crashers was on Xbox 360. But that was the pivot that showed me this is more of a indie style rather than a AAA style looking form. And so if someone thought that my music could not just be in a video game, but in a specific video game, my curiosity was opened even further. So ironically, I think I stumbled upon this, whereas I was able to pick up this engine called Mugen. And No Limit WinMugen is the actual engine, and you can design your own characters. Well, you could, but you could take your own characters if you want to see Death Star versus Sephiroth or Homer Simpson versus Yusuke Urameshi from Yu Yu Hakusho. You could, or any character that is your favorite. And I had music that I already wrote, and I implemented it without even knowing what audio implementation was at the time at all, or working any games or doing any of that. And it worked. So that was my test to myself to see, does it really fit in a video game? And I thought, like, wow, it really does work. And I played my music to a level in a fighting game that I wrote music for, designed and did the code. It was fantastic. So from there, I decided I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to learn everything I can in terms of how to write music for media, as I was already kind of doing film and games. And well, to mostly focus on film and games. And then I decided I'm not doing film. I'm just going to focus directly on games. And that's before I graduated from Moorpark College. My last theory class, I told myself I'm going to work in the industry. So I bought a book called The Complete Guide to Game Audio by Aaron Marks, second edition. I read half of the book. I posted my work on a game developer forum, and I got paid for it and shipped my first game called Electron Flux on mobile. I have to say on mobile because there's another Electron Flux game that came out now. So I have to be specific about the one on Android. And that's how it happened.
That is it. So let me ask, what made you say, you know what, I'm good on composing for film?
There was a session that my composition teacher knew the film composer Crispy Bacon. That's his name.
That's
Chris.
That is a tasty name.
So one of my close friends, Mike Daniels, went to the he got to go to the we both went to a Q&A that was happening as a guest speaking thing, and he actually got to go to the recording session. And he
Hmm.
told me things about this recording session that just sound extremely stressful and just out of this world. And I thought, I still want to enjoy some type of media because I already
Yeah.
had graduated from audio engineering school at the Los Angeles Recording School. I already had graduated from that. So I already had one degree there. And I thought, no, I don't think that's going. I want to. What happened when audio engineering school is they said you're never going to listen to music the same, and they were right. So I thought I don't want to not be able to enjoy any other type of media. The only thing we left is books after film and games. So I'm thinking I better just take film out. I don't think that's gonna work. And then I'm just gonna focus on games. Ironically, but it's something that with games for me, I've been playing games since I was 6 years old. Most people get an instrument at that time, and I was
Hmm.
writing music on Game Boy Camera at the
Wow.
time too. So that kind of just fits right into just the passion of something that I know, even though I'd seen films along at that time too. But games I just knew better. And clearly because, like I said, from high school, the first piece of music I ever wrote, someone said that's what it should be like. So it's a
Right.
very divine message coming to me in a way.
There's been hints throughout the life, like, maybe you should do this.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
I love that. That's fantastic, and I love too because I know that there's some composers that it's more not necessarily more about the music. Video games just isn't their thing. So, the fact that you do play, the fact that you've developed games and you have a very unique perspective of video games and then taking it from that, a music aspect, how does that kind of help you craft and shape what a game's sound and environment's going to be like?
It's just from playing many games in my time, I understand what it's supposed to be based off of playing for so long, playing many different styles, owning many different games that I've had in my life, and just have a knack of understanding what the game is asking for. So I typically relate this to be like a game whisperer, hours, and
Mm.
if I'm just knowing, or a game psychic, even probably of just knowing what this is supposed to feel like and how is it supposed to match the art form.
Yeah, because and I guess it depends too, because I mean, you've worked with a ton of people, and so you obviously the conditions are going to change. You're going to get a bunch of information. You might be able to get your hands on the game beforehand. What I guess would you say is something that you prefer when creating for a game? Do you kind of like to have a base or an understanding of it, or just, hey, you could throw something on a piece of paper, here's an explanation of what we're going for the game, run with it?
It's changed now since we're doing it for 14 years. And I think what matters to me is actually the personality and the mindset of the developer before the game is even approached or off, just what is it called? The prompted, or I'm getting a vertical slice or game design
Mm-hmm.
documents. Getting to know how people think really matters to me because then I'm able to understand everything else underneath. Why, what they were influenced by, why they were influenced by it, what is their background, what does it come from? That kind of connection in terms of a working relationship is steering the project in terms of how it's actually the music is going to evolve, because their thinking process is going to determine. I'm seeing work ethic and I'm seeing how passionate or focused or serious they are to
Mm.
actually complete it. It's one thing to get something and just, oh, we like your work and we're doing this type of game, but I just, for some reason, I think I've just mostly matured in terms of, well, who are you really?
Mm-hmm.
Who, what have you done and why are you doing it?
Well, I think that's an interesting point that you make, especially, and you're talking, you've been in the industry for a long time. It's changed a ton. And especially now, and I'll say it more so from a consumer side, I'm a guy that will sometimes will buy into an early access. I've gotten into a Kickstarter. So I've invested financially and emotionally a bit too into this game just to see them crash and burn or to never come out. So that's minimal. We're talking about going taking hours of your craft and time. So you would have to be more selective about who you're working with. Hey, let me know a little bit about what you guys are about because I want to make sure that I'm not just going around wasting my time.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That is what I found to be most important because it affects the creativity a lot, at least for me. I'm not one
Mhm.
of those video game composers that is hungry for trying to just do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I think I'm thankful to have I've made things happen out of Play-Doh, and
Right.
I'm very grateful that I was able to create that, and the Play-Doh is a work of art that people have appreciated and has changed people's lives in a way. And so it's important to me at this point where I'm approached with a project just to kind of have people who have a very specific vision and a mindset and also a work ethic that it doesn't have to match mine, but it could be similar to. That will
Yeah.
embolden the creativity and experience for the player at the end, I feel more because it's not coming from any place that's disingenuous, and it's not coming from a place of them just creating a project and making the game. I think a lot of people forgot that what a definition of a game means is
Mm.
that a game is supposed to be fun. It's an escape from something that you are trying to wind down from of a day and have a good time. And what I've discerned from players and development teams, as I'm a developer as well, because I work with the music, is that they forgot that it's supposed to be fun. Are you having fun? Is it
Right.
making you feel good? If it's not doing that, then there's something missing there.
You have validated my reason for not playing horror games. It's too much stress. It's too much anxiety. I don't need that in my life. So thank you for validating. No, but
Yeah, that's just for you. That's fine. Some people find
I
it
will watch
exhilarating.
people play them.
Yeah, see, that's fun for you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I still get to enjoy it, but I don't have to like live it.
Physically, yeah, go through it. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, and you kind of hinted at it a little bit, being a developer as well, but what does that process, I guess, look like? Are you ever, and as you're crafting the music that's going along with these stories, do you ever have any kind of input uh, with the devs or, working together to kind of marry the two together? Because I've seen one example that I think of is like a journey where the music plays such an integral role. It's in itself a game mechanic.
Yes, so I specialize in dynamic music, which is or adaptive or interactive music. And so I've done several games whereas in that typically has changed with the mechanics overall.
Mm-hmm.
And I can speak about so for the latest game, A Ground Zero, for example, this is a colony sim management game. And so what the program I worked with is that the very first level of this game is that when you have your UI and you have your items, the music is going to change based off of what those items actually what you're using to progress through the game. The music is going to
Mm-hmm.
change based on what items you select. And when you select those items based off of that, it seamlessly transitioned to another. I've designed this because I didn't want it to be basic loops. And people are going to be designing for hours and hours in colony management and building based crafting games.
Right.
So I kind of innovated without knowing that I innovated in that genre. And then I took it a step further, whereas in it's more environmental and combat for the second floor. The third
Mm-hmm.
floor then centers around themes in terms of what's happening within the story. And then it continues to musically dynamically designed between there as you progress through the game even further. And that's just one example for the game, but I've been doing this since my project on reality, whereas in based on your decisions throughout the game, a you'll have a different ending based off of what you decided, and the instruments will kind of reflect that if you chose to be in the virtual world or the real world within the game itself. And I have real instruments that I had hired musicians for and that I played myself, and then there's instruments that come from the computer. And depending on how you actually progress through the visual novel, there's going to be a specific instrument palette that happens near the end of the game for you. So that's something that I've tied within me. I've always found a way. Starting Under School for Witches is going to another game that's out that I did it with a combat system, and I even did this in I Can't Escape Darkness. So um like I said, when I played a lot of games, I'm able to kind of just bring something through a what if thought in an experimental form that I feel the player would enjoy rather than just being basic loops.
Yeah, I think, well, I have such a great appreciation for, not only music, but also like sound design and other elements that really play into crafting these environments, these moods, and to be able to directly affect the game and the players. Because like you're right, the loop of something like where you're doing colony management or some sort of management, it's a lot of, it can get monotonous, it can, a lot of the same things. Being able to spice it up and have some variety even in the sound keeps that loop interesting. It keeps it fun for folks. I think we're going to keep going back to fun, because it keeps
As we
it fun
should.
for folks. Yeah, and I love that. um you spoke to that. You spoke a bit about doing digital music. You've also spoke about physically doing music, and I know that you've physically gone places and done music as well. What does that look like, instrument wise? I imagine you play a ton of instruments, and how is it kind of working with a physical instrument and working with the digital, the DAWs, and working in that system and kind of marrying the two.
Comes from just an ideology of what I had as a child. I had a toy chest, and that obviously the toy chest had toys in it. So I kind of recreated that with instruments that I've collected from different places I've visited or that were gifted
Mm.
to me. And I just have like it's basically just a storage tub, but the storage tub has these instruments in it. You wouldn't know what it is until you saw it. And I open it up, and so it has whirly tubes and kalimbas and hand drums and maracas that I've had since a child, a native flute, and other things that I just tinker with and experiment. And the next thing I know, I like the sound. I want to record it. I figure out how to record it and implement it into the score, and it really just adds this nice freshness to it. Now it's it's the other side of having fun. It's the playing with your toys and figuring out what
Mm-hmm.
is just doing something. And then the virtual sounds offer just different timbres of things that you typically would have probably eventually create from those live instruments, but with a lot of
Mm-hmm.
processing, but that's already done for you. Or if it's synthesized version, which synthesizers are hardware mostly anyway before they come virtual. So it's the same thing just at a faster pace, but to I blend them if they're needed. I don't do things just because I feel like it needs it,
Mm-hmm.
unless I do feel though at this point that there's some kind of live instrument in any score that I have. So that actually just brings a bit of humanism to it, and it also adds to the signature sound that I have because I don't play instruments like other people play. And even though I'm a multi instrumentalist, I'm still generous in most of it. I mean, the most prominent instruments that I know how to play at least are piano and alto saxophone. But I have a bass guitar, I
A
have a guitar, I
saxophone.
have yeah,
I play sax as well.
nice,
Yes.
yeah.
But you're right.
But I
No, you're right. I love the fact that that you have those staples, but you're not bound to that. You've literally collected instruments and sounds over the years and just kind of use them when you're creating. And I really want to touch on. I'm totally spacing. On the peril of parrots. I popped that on and like instantly my body started moving, grooving. I'm making dinner. I got it. The family's in the living room. We're vibing. Tell me, what was the inspiration behind that? And it's such a rich sound. It's so like it just it feels good. It feels good.
thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate that. It's interesting. During the time I was studying the process of it, the developer Glenn Henry of Sprite Ranch decided he was going to do a game based off of a game jam he started. It was called "On the Peril of Scholastic Parrots." It was a research paper by a
Hmm.
specific doctor, and so he took that concept of what if you played as an AI and you had to prove yourself to humanity by solving puzzles. And the reference he gave me was this bossa nova, and I've if people are familiar with my discography, my gamography, I've kind of done little bossa nova things the past several
Hmm.
years. I get one track, like in the ground, there's a track that I've kind of played around with it to get that there, but to do an entire bossa nova soundtrack for a game is a dream come true because I love that genre so much. And so I felt like I had to modernize it, but keep it authentic and honest with it being for a game because I haven't ever heard a bossa nova soundtrack for a game, and I
Right.
played a lot of games. We hear, like I said, there's some tracks there might be a track for a game, but not an entire soundtrack. So studying Antonio Carlos Jobim and Ivan Lins and Stan Getz and a couple other pioneers of that genre. It's funny that you were talking about dinners that I was making dinner for someone and I was studying it while I was making dinner one time when I really started the project and had that, and then I went through the process of then thinking of what instruments would fit in a
Hmm.
texture timbre form that is not typical but will sound familiar. So I actually played penny whistle because it was close to the flute of the sound that typically would be in jazz. I did play alto saxophone. I I mean I wrote everything. But I created different shakers by rubbing my hands together, and then I had a ashalusha. It's like an African shaker, but it wasn't exactly like a shaker you have it. So by rubbing my hands together and doing
Mm.
the actual like different shakers, I combined that. So it really has a very unique sound. Specifically, I even hired my mom to sing, and she
Oh.
wrote a piece in Portuguese. I didn't even know my mom could sing in Portuguese, and my mom is a great singer. And she gave it back to me and sang it. And I was like, I didn't even know you could speak Portuguese or sing in Portuguese.
Surprise.
Yeah, so it was a big surprise for even the developer. He loved it, and so that tone, and also to say playing mandolin instead of guitar. I did hire a musician to play guitar for the very first theme, but then by meta nuances, I had found the tone that I was looking for. And that's what I was saying is I'm modernizing it, keeping it for a game, but also keeping the authenticity and honoring those that pioneered that sound that I love so much. Homage, in a way, is to say to what bossa nova really is for the 21st century.
Is music something that runs in your family?
Yes, my mom is
Okay.
mostly the musician in the family. My father's a music connoisseur. He definitely understands it very well, but he's not a musician.
Right. I was gonna say 'cause my mom, and love you, mom, but you singing? Come on now. Let's good try, good try. That's awesome, and I'm so glad you said it was bossa nova because I couldn't put my finger on. what genre it was. It really gave me like Caribbean vibes. I'm half Guyanese, so I've got folks like in Trinidad and in that area and stuff like that. So I'm familiar with that sound, and like I'm telling you, brother, you nailed it because that's where you took me. That is where you took me.
And I'm Bayesian. Well, my mom's side of the family is Bayesian, so family's from Barbados, and
Oh,
the developers from Jamaica as well. So that the
okay.
sound is very important to kind of also give to what that's supposed to be as well. So that yes, thank you for mentioning that too.
No, I love that. I absolutely love that. That's fantastic to know. In terms of that and just that game as well. Is there? I mean, let's quickly just. Is there any other like in terms of I know that you've worked on a ton of games that are out there, but are there any that really it's hard to it's like it's that would be like trying to say this is my favorite child, but what are some of the what are some of the games that you've worked on that have really like resonated with you? I know it's such an open question. Let me narrow it down a little bit. Here within the last, let's just say 3 years, because we know that music industry, a lot of stuff is changing and is changing quickly. Within the last few years, what are two projects that really stood out to you and that really resonated with you?
It's very hard to answer this question. It's not because it's mostly like you were saying, like choosing your favorite child, but it mostly comes from a perspective of two things. One, what I went through the process to create the soundtrack, and the other thing of how it's affected others in their lives and the response that I got externally. So I would have to say those two projects are On the Peril of Parrots and Stardander School for Witches.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm not. So can you tell us a little bit? What was the second one that you said?
Stardander School for Witches.
Startender School for Witches.
Hmm.
Tell, tell us a little bit about that game. I am not familiar with that.
Sure. It's in early access right now. It's not done, but I finished the score 2 years ago. Excuse me. And it's about it takes a Harry Potter approach. You're a witch going through a witch school for 7 years. It's a visual novel RPG. This is a folk hybrid soundtrack that I wrote, and I'll be releasing it this year. So it, like I said, is just a magical, whimsical game, whereas in you're just going through the story and the narrative as far as you at least can go with whatever's released. But the process of it was experimenting with folk music and making it magical and then aligning it to what witches typically would embrace. The dynamic music design that comes with the combat system is very unique, and it has a very specific sound in terms of instruments aligning to the elements fire, ice, wind, and water. And as well as when you're doing well in combat, all the instruments enter. When you're not doing well, the instruments are subtracted. But also, like, drums represent earth, violins and strings represent fire, and mostly kind of fall in line with the rest of the instrumentation that you typically hear when you're playing.
Mhm.
So that's what Stardander School for Witches is about.
Okay, that's how I definitely know some people that would be interested in that. And you said that it's in early access right now on. Is it just Steam or?
It's just Steam.
Okay, okay. I like that. I like that idea. What was it? Was it? Did you have fun? Uh, you know, working in like kind of like this magical space and being able to play in that sandbox.
I wouldn't say it was fun. It was very challenging.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. This is coming from like, wait a second. That is work for you. Like he said, this is work.
It was working many different ways, but it took 3 years to write the soundtrack and went through a
Hmm.
lot of emotional things that you can hear is like what it resonates with you. And as I wrote through the process, I wrote through what I was happening in my life, and so it aligns very well, I think, with that type of game because the those characters are going through the things they're going through with however the story is progressing too. But I've never
Hmm.
written a folk hybrid score before. So we've got vocalists. My mom is singing on that one again too. I'm playing mandolin on that as well. I'm playing zither. I'm playing other virtual instruments. The way that I'm actually conflating the sound and as it evolves is it's unlike anything I've ever written before. And I think that's what happened with On the Parallel Parrots is that when I'm challenged with something that is not a typical, hey, we want these type of like, it's okay to have references, but it's not so direct and I have a little bit of creative freedom. 'Cause- And whatever comes as the creative, whatever your is happening in your life typically seeps into what you are inditing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, and that's in so many different forms of art where, I think every piece has a bit of the artist in it as well, but just kind of their ups and down and what's going on in their personal lives at the time can really, affect that art and have some sort of way. And to me, that's part of the beauty of it is being able to go along that journey, and it's an emotional journey as well for artists. So just being able to share that art with other folks and then have that, then they have emotions towards it one way or the other and how it affects them. It's such a beautiful process.
Yeah, you're right. I think the last deeply emotional. I think I guess it's not. It wasn't as deep as Stardander, so I have to correct myself there. But then that's emotional experience that I think that started with some of the soundtracks was the reality. And I always wonder. It's good to see people like I've been hired based off of that soundtrack. People with
Hmm.
Bandcamp Friday happens, they support my work, they get that soundtrack, and it's good to see that it's kind of the under the radar type of project. A lot of people know that one, but that was the one I remember hiring musicians. Was going through something in that their time too. But that was the game where I was saying when I talked about the external part of it, like on the Parallel Parrots, I won the award for the external. And the reality project, it made my best friend cry. He never shares his feelings. He never says anything like that. He does play games as much as I've been playing games. We grew up together.
Hmm.
And when you write music for a game and your best friend tells you it made him cry based off of like I was saying how the decisions that he made within the game, whatever instrumentation that came together near the end dynamically for him emotionally brought him to tears. So that is what I was talking about in terms of whatever is coming through from you is going to resonate with someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, yeah, that would especially somebody that's so close to you as well, to be able to have that kind of effect and them, feeling that as well I mean, how do you even describe that? That's such a connectivity between people and art and everything. It's I that's the kind of stuff that I love to hear about and see because I emotionally connect to that. There's songs that in music that like I can hear the first couple of notes, instantly my eyes start watering. I'm just like, oh, it just it just takes you somewhere, and to be able to have such a strong effect on people, again, to me, is why we need to highlight this. And kind of moving away a little bit from the games, I want to talk about the fact, number one, you perform live at Indiecade, and then you started streaming on their channel once a week. You've talked about streaming and just being in the industry as long as you have and how much it has changed. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like, how it is for you, and just being in that space in general.
I'm without giving too much away because I wrote a book about this. It's coming out this year.
Oh, let's
So
go. Okay.
thank you. It it's interesting to navigate and it's difficult to navigate as well. The reason is because I believe the industry operates off of fear and
Mm,
not as much confidence as it should. Very intelligent people there, but for some reason, fear takes over. In terms of what, just kind of just going back, I performed at Indicate. It was a really good opportunity and experience. It's really cool to do that. I streamed on their channel for about a year or two, just showcasing the work that I do as a video game composer. And I've been streaming my work as a video game composer, showing how I write video game music. And I did that to educate people, from players to other development teams, that you're not just pressing one note. A lot goes into the work. And so I did that for 10 years. And that was where I was mostly just trying to just it also focused on how I'm writing in different styles, how fast I could write, and getting also other pieces of work done while I was doing something. It was like a trifold type of thing. But in
mm-hmm.
terms of navigating the industry up to this point, it goes back to what I said, like the mindset and mentalities. And what I discovered mostly is just a lot of people just need to learn to mature and treat themselves with respect and consistency and reciprocity before they can kind of collaborate with others and mature in the way of just be do treating themselves well. There used to be the adage of like treat others the way you want to be treated. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that that's necessarily true, because if they're treating others, I'm sorry, I'm just going to use an expletive. If they're treating others like shit, then I don't know why you would want them to treat you like shit. But then if
Right.
that happens, then you have they're in litigation, and then all these other just dramatic things are happening for over the years. And so with that comes trauma, and trauma comes fear. So I would say the maturity aspect comes from stop, think about how you're treating yourself. Are you taking care of yourself? Are you eating well? Are you sleeping? Are you doing things that you want to do, not because you have to do? Are you having a quality of life? Is there balance? And if it starts from within, then you mostly will attract quality of people that want to collaborate with you at the level of that, and the fear will dissipate, and the focus and the collaboration will be more creative and proper. So that is kind of summarized in a way, and it can be seen as a conspectus of what I may have gone through in the industry, but also where I've matured in that respect too, because I came into this industry with a lot of professionalism and thinking that that was going to be the case, where people
Mm,
respond to you on time, or everything happens in life. But it comes to a point where, if you're doing at least 3 follow-ups past that, and you're not hearing one response of something that's very quick, you have email on your phones to say, sorry, I just want to let you know I saw this, I'll get back to you when I can, and you do. Yeah, that's that whole maturity type of professionalism, work ethic thing I was speaking about. So there's so many different avenues. We could do a whole nother episode about this, but like I was saying, it's mostly a prospectus of what it's like. And that's
yeah.
typically what it's like. And hopefully it will change for the better. I think it's very few people that have the mentality of understanding how to work with that work ethic and that professionalism that is the standard of how would how do you treat yourself
Mhm.
versus how you treat others, and how it perpetuates forward.
Absolutely. And speaking of collaborations, I've got to ask, if you had one person you could collaborate with, who would it be? What would you guys collaborate on?
It would be the person that understands respect, consistency, and reciprocity.
Hmm.
And whatever comes from that project will probably be a good project.
Yo, those are the facts right there, my friend. Chase, where can people find you? Please let people know where they can find, your socials, all that good stuff, brother.
Thank you. Yes. So the book is called Student of the Game: How I've Navigated the Video Game Industry the Past Decade. It will be released this year. And So look out for that. I'll be doing hopefully more runs on press runs about what that's going to be. Hopefully doing a book tour and everything. You can find me at Chase Bethea, Chase, like the bank. B as in boy, E as in Eric, T as in Tom, H as in Harry, E as in Eric, A as in Apple, chasebethea.com. Also have a YouTube page where I'll hopefully be posting more behind the scenes work, talks that I've given, and more performances, as well as other cool, fun things of when I go to these conferences, what my experience is like. I also have a Patreon where I'll be doing behind the scenes thoughts of what navigating what it's like in the field. So you can do patreon.com/Chase Bethea and support my work on even or chasebethea.bandcamp.com and also Pandora and other streaming websites except Spotify.
No, awesome. And I will make sure we're going to go ahead. We'll put those links all up in the description and all that stuff so you can go and check out everything that Chase has going on. Again, Chase, thank you so much for taking the time, sitting down, jibber-jabbing with me. I hope you had a great time, my friend.
I did. Thank you, Ryan, again. Honor to be the inaugural episode for you, and best wishes to many more great episodes.
Thank you so much. That will do it for Pixelated Harmony. Until next month, see you next time.